In addition to regular gameplay, there are a few rules that are very specific to RoboCup Junior Soccer. We will talk about when to reset the ball, how to handle robots that leave the field, and about foul play. Lack of progress occurs if there's no progress in the gameplay for a reasonable period of time, and this situation is not likely to change. Typical lack of progress situations are when there's no change in the ball or robot's position, like in this video, when the ball is stuck between robots, like in this video, or when the ball is beyond detection, like in this video. Here's a staged example of how lack of progress should be called. Once the ref determines a lack of progress, a hand gesture is made to where the ball will be moved. The ref then announces lack of progress, 3, 2, 1, and then moves the ball. Sometimes this may not work, so lack of progress is called again. Also note here how the two refs are working together to move the ball. Out of reach is another situation when you'll need to move the ball. Before discussing out of reach, let us first take a look at how far the robots can reach. Here the ball is resting outside of the playing field. It takes some time, but the robot is able to eventually reach the ball. The ball can even go out of reach and then back in bounds into the playing field like in this video. However, sometimes the ball cannot physically be reached by the robots and thus it is not likely to return into play. Here you can see 3 examples of unreachable ball positions. In these cases, you as a referee may call out of reach immediately. You will then move the ball to the nearest unoccupied neutral spot immediately without a countdown. So if progress is stalled but may occur again, call a lack of progress and count down before moving the ball. If the ball is obviously out of reach, you may call out of reach and immediately move the ball. Note that you should not rush to call lack of progress or out of reach, especially in critical situations like when the ball is near a goal. In this video of an actual match, notice how the referees take their time before deciding to move the ball. Here's one last really important thing. Whenever you place a ball onto a neutral spot, make sure that it is actually neutral. This means that no team should gain an advantage because of your choice. Pay close attention to this video. The first time the ball goes out of reach, the ball is moved to a further neutral spot in the center because the attacking team is at the nearest spot ready to make a goal. The second time the ball goes out of reach, the ball is moved normally to the nearest neutral spot. This is important, so here it is again. Make sure that no team will gain an advantage when you move the ball. In human soccer, the human players can leave the playing field, but the ball cannot. In RoboCup Junior Soccer, however, the ball can leave the playing field, although it usually returns, but the robots cannot leave the field. Also, robots cannot fully enter the penalty area. Basically, they cannot cross any white line. One case a robot is called out of bounds is when it is completely beyond the white rectangle. In this picture, only robot number 3 is out of bounds because it is completely outside of the white rectangle. A robot is also called out of bounds if it moves completely into a penalty area, even while still touching the white line. In this picture, only robot 1 is out of bounds, even though it is still over the white penalty area line. This can be somewhat confusing, so let's zoom in on it a little. Here, both robots are in bounds. Robot 1 is over the field outside of the penalty area, and Robot 2 is still over the white rectangle. Now Robot 1 has gone out of bounds even though it is still touching the white line. The penalty area includes the white line and a robot cannot be completely inside of it. Robot 2 is still in bounds here because it's still over the white rectangle. Now Robot 2 is also out of bounds because it's completely outside of the white rectangle. To help you remember the boundaries, realize that the outer white rectangle is part of the playing field and the white penalty line is part of the penalty area. When a robot moves out of bounds, it is taken out of the game for 1 minute. When doing that, declare out of bounds loudly and use the robot's handle to pass it to a team member. In this video, you can see this demonstrated. After it is removed, start a penalty timer and only allow the robot to be put back into the field after the 1 minute penalty is up. When ready to place a robot back into the field, you point to the nearest furthest unoccupied neutral spot from the ball. Ensure the robot is facing its own goal before giving the okay to restart that robot. The team then places the penalized robot into the field. If a team places a robot into the field early, not in the correct spot, or not facing the correct direction, that team may be penalized again. Here's an example of what it would look like to place a robot back in correctly. In RoboCup Junior Soccer, both robots of one team should not block their own goal simultaneously. We call this double defense. Double defense occurs if two robots from the same team are at least partially inside their own penalty area. Here, robots 1 and 2 are both partially inside their own penalty area. In this case, the robot further away from the ball will be moved to the furthest unoccupied neutral spot immediately. Notice that in this case, the robot being moved is the defending robot. Teams must design their robots to adapt to the situation. Here's how this will happen in practice. Just grab the handle from the robot further away from the ball and put it onto the furthest unoccupied neutral spot. If this happens repeatedly in short succession, like is what is happening here, a robot may be deemed damaged at the referee's discretion and will be penalized for 1 minute. We will talk more about how to handle damaged robots later. Lastly, we need to talk about foul play. In RCJ soccer, a defending robot has priority over the ball and cannot be pushed into its own goalie area. We call that pushing. Here's how pushing is defined. If an attacking robot, like Robot 3, and a defending robot, like Robot 1, touch each other while at least one of them is at least partially inside the penalty area and at least one of them has physical contact with the ball, this may be called pushing at the referee's discretion. In this picture, Robot 3 is trying to tackle Robot 1 out of the way, which is clearly a pushing foul. Here's another example of pushing. Robot 3 is pushing Robot 1 into the goal together with its ball. If you see pushing happening, you as a referee will call out loudly, "Pushing." Then you will immediately place the ball onto the furthest unoccupied neutral spot. If the ball was already inside the goal is now invalid. You will not count the goal. You will not prepare a kickoff. Instead, the game will just resume without even halting the robots. Here's a stage example of the pushing rule is intended to avoid. The attacker should not push the defender out of the way to make a goal like this. Here's a stage example of what it would look like to handle a pushing situation. The ball should now be placed to the furthest unoccupied neutral spot. If pushing occurs but a goal is made before the ball is moved, you may discount the goal and still move the ball to the furthest unoccupied neutral spot. Be aware that this can happen quickly, like in this video. This is a staged example of a situation that would meet the technical definition of pushing, but has little impact on the game. This is where your discretion will come into play. But what if you're unsure? You can quickly consult your co-referee about their opinion, but ultimately, trust your judgment. If the foul play did not influence the game, or you're unsure whether it did, you can always decide to not call it pushing. Whatever you decide, your call will be the final call. Even if a team starts arguing about counting or not counting a goal due to pushing, you make that call, not them. If teams do not accept that, or if they don't stop arguing with you, you can always call your OC members and they will back you up. Here is a quick summary of everything we just covered. Once you practice the sum, you're sure to become more comfortable with what to do. In the next section, we're going to go into detail about penalizing robots.